Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make this super easy 2-row snowflake scarf. This scarf, just as it says in the title, is made up of 2 repeating rows, and I'm going to show you how to weave in your ends and alternate colors to get this super cute snowy pattern. If you liked the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for new content every Sunday. Let's get right on into it. For your materials today, you will need about 2 skeins of a smaller size for your main color yarn, something that's going to be about maybe 400 grams. For your secondary colors, you'll need about a small skein on its own or maybe 200 grams of both of them. This is all going to be dependent on your exact size, but that's based off of the sizing I used. You will also need a small pair of scissors as well as a 4mm hook. Now continuing on to the piece itself, we're going to begin by making a slip knot. If this is something you've never done before, welcome to the very first step, which is just taking your piece of yarn and grabbing the tail end with your left hand or your non-dominant hand. I then form this little half oval shape by wrapping it underneath of my other fingers, and you can pull it a little bit so that way there's enough room to insert your forefinger and thumb on the other hand right inside like this. What you're going to do then is twist it over top so you make that figure 8, and then grab the bottom piece from underneath like so, and then simply pull it up to create your slip knot. Now you're going to take your hook and insert it through that little loop, and pull very gently on the tail end to fasten it to the hook itself. You don't want it too tight or you won't be able to move it, so make sure you can still push it up and down like this. From there, you want to actually adjust your grip so that way you're holding the yarn properly. This is what's most comfortable for me, putting it over top my forefinger on my left hand and underneath of the others. I then use my thumb and middle finger to grab onto the tail end of the yarn, and then I use my right hand to hold the hook. Of course, you can invert any of that if you are left-handed. Now we're going to move on to the chain, which is done by looping over your hook like so, twisting your hook down, and pulling through the loop already on your hook. You'll then twist back up and come back upwards. Showing you again, yarn over like so, twist your hook, pull through the loop already there, twist it again, and come back up. And for this project, you are going to chain any multiple of 3 because that's how many are going to be in the little bubble patterns. So I'm doing 24 to have a wider scarf, but you can honestly go as low as 12 to have something about half the size. It all depends on how thick or thin you want your scarf to be. This is what it usually looks like once your chains are done. They might not be as perfectly even as mine if you've never done so before, so don't worry about them being totally perfect. As we continue, once the base of your foundation chain is done, regardless of what you did, you're going to need to add 2 more chains, and that's going to be used for the border on the outside. So simply just add your 1, 2, and then we are finally going to do something called a turning chain. And this is just the same as the other chains that you're making. I'm just differentiating it so you guys understand that this chain won't be a part of the length. So what I just pointed out was your 26 stitch if you did 24 or whatever your last stitch was. We are going to add 1 more here so that we will be able to turn our work for the next row. So all together for mine, I made 27. Moving on to row 1, you are simply just going to be putting 1 single crochet stitch into every single one of the chains. A single crochet is made by simply inserting your hook into the first chain you want to go into. Once it's in like so, you'll have 2 loops left on your hook. From there, you'll yarn over like you're going to make a chain and pull through only that first loop on your hook, making sure there's still 2 after you've pulled through like this. From there, you're going to yarn over 1 more time, and this time pull it through both remaining loops on your hook. And that is the foundation single crochet stitch. What we'll be doing is adding 1 of these into every single one of those chains. So to show you very slowly 1 more time, into the next stitch you will insert your hook, yarn over and pull through just that first loop, and then with 2 on your hook you will yarn over again and pull it through them both. And you are going to do this until you've made 1 single crochet per every stitch. So for example, I made 27 chains, so that was our 24 plus 2 extra plus 1 turning. So you're going to subtract this turning chain, so for me it would be 26. So to make that make more sense, 26 chain stitches is the same thing as 26 single crochets. At the end of your row, just to point it out, your last chain might look like it's part of the knot, so don't forget it, just rely on counting. Once you're done, you'll have a small piece that looks like this, and this is the foundation for your scarf. Before you continue, make sure it's the length you want it. To start row 2, you are going to chain 2 times as opposed to the 1 chain we made for the last row. You will then turn your work to the side like this, and begin by inserting 2 double crochets in the first 2 stitches. So to make a double crochet, you're going to start by yarning over before you even go into the loop. So yarn over once, and then push in through that loop that is on your last single crochet row. Once it's through, you are going to yarn over again and pull it through just so it has 3 loops left on your hook. It will look like this at this point. From there, you're going to yarn over again, pulling it through 2, and then come up so there's 2 loops left, yarn over again and pull through 2 more. And that'll create a taller stitch than the single crochet. We're going to do this one more time, but slow, just so that way you guys know what we're doing. Start by yarning over, inserting it through the single crochet here, yarning over again and pulling through, making sure that you have 3 loops left on your hook. You'll then yarn over again, pull through 2, and yarn over one more time, pulling through 2 more. That is the first step that we'll be doing. The next step is to put 5 double crochets into the same stitch. So to do this, it's a little bit different than the regular double crochets that we made a second ago, so we're going to take it very slow once again so you guys know what you're doing. Into your next stitch, you'll start again by yarning over and inserting your hook in. So this is the same as we were doing before. You'll yarn over again, pull it out so that way you have 3 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through just 2. This is where the difference occurs. Rather than yarning over again and pulling it through these 2 loops, you are actually going to begin your next double crochet, making sure you go into the same single crochet in the last row. And again, you'll insert it until you have loops on your hook like this, going through 2 and then stopping. As you can see, we have 3 loops this time as opposed to the 2. As you continue to go through like so, you'll end up with 4 loops on your next pass around, 5 loops on the 4th, and when you get to your 5th double crochet, you will have 6 total loops remaining on your hook. And that's because we didn't finish any of the crochet stitches, we're just leaving them all here, so they can all be finished with one final pull through like so. So when you have 6 loops remaining on your hook, you will yarn over and pull through all 6. And that, my friends, is how you create the little popcorn stitch, or the bubble stitch, whatever you rather call them. And it is just because we are basically crowding one stitch to have 5 crochets in it. That pattern of 2 regular double crochets, followed by the 5 in 1 stitch, is going to be repeated throughout the entirety of row 2. So for your next bit, you will make 2 more double crochets, and I want to show you how to do a color switch on the second one. So as you are doing your double crochet, you are going to stop after you've gone through the first 2 loops. Now rather than pulling through, you will take your next color yarn and basically use that to finish the stitch. So instead of using the same yarn that you were using, take your new color and just very gently pull it through the loops that are there. And you can just push that tail out of the way for now, pull it tight so that way we have everything secured, and then just start using your new color. That's another practice that takes a little bit more time to get used to, so don't worry if you have a little bit of trouble with it. Just rewatch the video and please leave me a comment or send me a DM with a video on Instagram if you need some extra help. Continuing, you're just going to do the rest of this as normal, doing your 5 double crochets into 1 stitch. I figure I'll just show you this part one more time, nice and slow, so you can get the hang of it without needing to rewind the video. And since we're using another color, I want you guys to know that the stitch is exactly the same, even though we switched in the row prior to that. So as you go through, once you have all 6 loops remaining on your hook and 5 total double crochets into that stitch, I'm going to go back using the main color yarn to finish it off. So pulling tight on the yellow in this case, or whatever your secondary color was here, instead of yarning back over with the yellow and pulling through, I'm going to drop the yellow behind the piece like so, and then pull up with my purple color here. So going very gently, just with the purple now, you're just going to yarn over and pull it back through, and that will complete your color switch. And now as you can see, this little bubble here is yellow while the first one is purple. And you're going to continue repeating that all the way down this row. At the end of your row, you want to make sure that you are doing 2 double crochets with your main color, and then we are going to go back to repeating the rows over and over again. So you would go back to row 1 after this is done. Here's a quick glimpse though at what your piece would look like from here, with all your cute little popcorn or bubbles sticking out. These will be a little bit easier to see than they would be if they were to say flat double crochet. But to repeat row 1, you'll start again by chaining 1 time, turning your work around, and then placing 1 single crochet back into every single one of these stitches. As you can see here though, the back is a little bit messy, so what I want to show you guys next is how to get rid of those little lines and yarn overlays. In this segment, I'm going back to using the colors of the original scarf, since it'll be a little bit easier to see now as opposed to how it would have looked before. To weave in the ends of your tails, see how I'm very carefully going over top of the yarn? I know I'm starting at a random point here, but the gist of it is that when you are inserting your double crochets through that spot here, what you want to do is make sure that you're going underneath of the other piece of yarn. So I'm taking that white piece here, going through the single crochet stitch behind the blue piece, and then pulling my way up and around. So it's basically like I'm encapsulating the yarn inside of itself to kind of give that finish of here is a clean piece in both the front and the back. In a spot like this, when I'm switching colors, I make sure that I still go underneath here so that way the pieces are aligned, and I'm still grabbing that white yarn now and going over top with the blue, just so that way nothing gets weirdly bundled up. And you guys are currently looking at the back of my piece here and see how clean it looks. You've already seen the front, so you know that that part is pristine as well, but you have no more of those weird overlays with the yarn sticking over top of itself. When you are fully at the end of your piece, I'm going to show you how to weave in all these little ends here. What I do to finish off each row with the color stitches is I simply just take my scissor and cut it off like this, just so that way I get them out of the way and I can re-add them at the end of the next row. But for now, just don't worry about these. I also wanted to show you guys how to create the little pattern of color that I do here to switch between the light and dark blue. Basically what I'm doing is alternating. So as you can see, that last row I started with a white puff and then I went to the light blue. In this row I'm starting with a dark blue puff and then I'm going to do my whites afterwards, and it's basically going to create that little checker effect. At any point in the project, basically what you should be looking at is every dark blue piece should be aligned with each other horizontally and vertically, while every light blue piece should be aligned the same way. But simply, you're just going to continue to repeat all of those steps, going in and out of both colors, weaving in your ends as you go, and simply just going until the piece is as long as you want it to be. That is totally up to your personal preference. I recommend going somewhere about the length of your own wingspan, but it does not need to be nearly that long. As a matter of fact, my piece was not in this. But it is simply up to you how much time you have, who you're making it for. If it's for a child, it'll need to be a little bit smaller. If it's for somebody who's a bit more grown, then of course you can leave it as long as you need. The last bit here that I want to show you is how to tuck in these ends as you're going across the piece. So for me, since I'm cutting all of mine, you have 2 options. You can either go in and basically take your hook and weave them all through the back of the piece, but that might leave like a little bit of a showy line. Your other option is to trim these all a bit smaller and then going along the sides of your piece, doing a single crochet row to basically tuck in all the ends the same way we were doing it throughout the piece. So the same way with the double crochet row, what you would do is go around and underneath of these little tails hanging out to encapsulate them inside of the white yarn, doing this all the way across until you just can't see that they were there in the first place. When you are done with your scarf, no matter where you land off, you are simply going to chain 1, cut your yarn, and then pull it up and through the chain as I'm doing here. What that's going to do is create a knot, which you're then going to pull on to tighten it up, and you can just weave in that final end however you please. I also added tassels to the end of mine. If you want to check it out, consider grabbing a membership. Over there, I'll be showing the full tutorial on adding them to the scarf if you don't know how to do so already. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. If this helped you, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment with any questions you may have or things you want to see in the future. I offer memberships, as well as links to all of my socials, both in the description and on screen, and I post every Sunday at 1 p.m. See you next week. Bye-bye!